around and disregard it. Sweep you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock it. Let's get it started, it's the hardest. Talk around, don't disregard it. Sweep you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock it. Let's get it started. Yeah,
get your boots ready. We're about to go on a trip where we wrestle, nobody settling or calling it quits. You're here for the grit, betcha this stuff is amazing. You're stumbling, welcome to the bump in the apron. Step into it, the hardest part of the ring. Here to bring fun, yeah, and this art he is king. It's the best thing, making sure you don't tap out. Don't go soft with the hardest podcast out. And it's not just another one, it's clear. Off the rest, in this content, none contest. Take the nonsense off the steps. You know it's nothing but pure gems when it's coming off the chest. Get it? Now it's time to sit and relax. Get your mind blown away, ain't no skipping this track. Have you paying more attention, no listening gap. Get everything I ever wanted, no giving it back. Yeah.
Ooh, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Apron Bump Podcast. I am your host, Kyle, better known as the hardest part of the ring. And boy, howdy. Butter my tits and call me Susan. We have a great show to cover today. Summerslam 2002. Rapidly approaching the 20-year anniversary of this show. As of, dropping this episode, I'm about a month or two away from 20 years of this show occurring, which is, doesn't feel real, but it is. And, cause you can just watch a show in a bubble, right? You can just watch it with no context of the build-up or where we are in history, and you could still enjoy it. I mean, just the matches, just looking at the card from top to bottom. I mean, Kurt versus Ray. You got Benoit versus RVD. Of course, Brock versus Rock. You got Shawn versus Triple H. You got just a ton of great work rate on this show. That's kind of where because that's, to me, is why it's such a good argument for this show being the best SummerSlam of all time, is because not just because of the matches in a vacuum and how good the work rate was within the show, but just where we are in time and history in the context of WWE, because we're fresh off of Vengeance, we're fresh off of the the GMs being established, we're fresh off of because the first half of 2002, if you've been listening to my previous episodes as I've covered this year chronologically, the first half of 2002 is very much WWE just kind of hopelessly reaching for that Attitude Era luster, right? It's long gone, but they're trying to grab that towel and wring some more water out of it, as the kids say. But there is no water to be had. It is bone dry. So what they have been forced to do is completely pivot their mindset and pretty much put forth a different product than what they've been giving us for the past few years at that point. And a lot of it is good. And a lot of people consider this era the best era of all time. And I'm inclined to agree with that because while there's still many storylines, a lot of ridiculous storylines, and we're not, it's in a weird, the Golden Thong Awards and the pudding matches and all that shit, right? But on the whole, there's, I just went from Golden Thong to On the Whole, so it was a bit of tied some wires in my brain there. But yeah, there's a lot more emphasis on work rate in this era. And again, we talk about this more in the podcast itself, but just the beginning of a new era in a lot of ways. It's the beginning of Brock Lesnar, the beginning of the famous Triple H and Shawn Michaels rivalry. We get the beginning of, not on this show, but 2 weeks later, the World Heavyweight title is introduced. And like I said, you got the two different GMs, the two different distinct brands. You finally got enough people flip-flopping from brand to brand. We got solid rosters here, and we're kind of off to the races. This shows also the ascent of guys like Booker T, guys like Rey Mysterio, who's making his pay-per-view debut here. So a lot of major happenings, a lot of milestone moments in this show to accompany the great matches. So, and just a really interesting, because we're still in a transitionary time, both, the company of WWE in general, but also for guys like Flair and Jericho and the Un-Americans. It's a really interesting period for a lot of guys. And again, we talk about that. I'm teasing you. I'm titillating your juices with all these teases here. But if you would like your juices further titillated, maybe you're just stumbling upon the podcast for the first time. You're a new Apron bumper, as I like to call my listeners. I don't. But so go to apronbump.com. I cover all sorts of wrestling, companies big and small, indie, mainstream, across 4 different decades. The best and worst of wrestling, whether it's ruthless aggression, like we're talking about today, Attitude Era, New Generation, WWF, WCW, ECW, all those companies kind of intertwining. Also talk about the golden era of TNA, the golden era of Ring of Honor, Progress Wrestling. And so if you're into that kind of thing, which you're here, so I would hope you are, go check out apronbump.com. You can go to the episodes tab at the top and you can filter to whatever promotion or era that tickles your pickle. And wherever you listen to podcast, you're fucking listening to the podcast. You know how to find me. But check out the YouTube version as well if you're listening to audio. And speaking of YouTube, speaking of audio, speaking of titillating, my guest today, GoodMicWork. That's right, Greg Morgan from GoodMicWork Commentaries joins me to recap SummerSlam 2002 today. Go check out GoodMicWork on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. All that info is in the description, as always. GoodMicWork Commentaries for all the things Gregory. No, it was a really fun time with Greg on this episode. Really smart guy. He's been watching wrestling his whole life. Really entertaining. Go check out his podcast. He was one of the first maybe the first wrestling podcast I ever listened to. He's been doing it for over 12 years, which is it's crazy. It's almost as old as the show we're recapping. Not really. But yeah, man, I was listening to GoodMicWork. Shit, man. I was probably doing homework in high school listening to GoodMicWork rant about, people hating John Cena and whatever he was talking about back then. He's been doing it for a long time, and I was really honored that he came on my show today to talk about a legendary show. So go check out Greg. Go check out me. You're listening to me, so just keep checking me out. With that, let's get into it, baby. WWE SummerSlam 2002 with myself and Greg Morgan from GoodMicWork Commentaries. Where do you think in terms of like SummerSlams? Where does this rank for you?
This is on my top 10 at least. I know I've ranked this pretty high when I've talked about SummerSlams before. I'd have to really think. All my favorite SummerSlams are going to be coming before this. So, it would be really hard to not put it on my top 5, up there with like 90 and, maybe 94 I really like, and
right,
Highway to Hell, a couple other ones. So, yeah, I might even bump it up to top 5. But in terms of like on paper, I think it's the best card it's ever had.
Oh, yeah.
Just in terms of like the names, some of these names just on paper is like, what a crazy looking card. There's who's who, really. So
Hall of Famers all throughout, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know, my wrestling memory, I probably will go a little bit older than this in terms of the one that I personally like, but I wouldn't argue with anybody that says this is the best SummerSlam ever.
Yeah,
if that's what they think, I'm like, sure, I'm not arguing. It's a hell of a card. Can't argue with the card.
Right, exactly. Because you grew up, because you're a bit older than me. So you more your wrestling, I guess, like your peak fandom is probably like late 80s, early 90s, right?
Right, yeah, and even mid 90s, and then I really got back, got excited around Attitude Era and stuff. So anything from like probably peak like 87 through 2003, was kind of like, that's my chunk, and then before, after that, I watched, but a little fuzzier, after that and stuff. So, but yeah, that's my go-to time period for most of my favorite anything is from that chunk of years.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see why. Yeah, for me too, it kind of blurs as I get older. Everything kind of blurs together.
Yeah.
Like it's harder to compartmentalize like years, like when things happen for me at least. But yeah, great card for sure, and it's like really kicking off the ruthless aggression era here. Technically, you could say Vengeance was the beginning, the month before this, but you get to see some of the the seeds being planted for future things and the brand competition and stuff like that. And me personally, I wasn't watching in 2002. So I think this is actually the first time I watched this show from start to finish. I have seen a few matches kind of in a bubble, but so this show, probably the quickest start of any wrestling show that I've ever seen, at least
Mhm.
a pay-per-view at least. Because I mean, within the first, it's like before minute 3, we already have Kurt Angle and Rey Mysterio just flipping all over the place, just reversals and counters and stuff.
Yeah.
As far as opening matches go, I mean, whenever I think of an opening match, like if there's a pay-per-view coming up, and I'm like thinking to myself, oh, what match is going to open it? I have 2 matches that come to mind that I like compare it to. Brett and Owen from WrestleMania 10 and Kurt Angle versus Rey Mysterio from SummerSlam 2002. And like any opening matches like on the top of your head that come to mind as far as like the quality of this one?
This one would have to be one of the top ones because if memory serves, they didn't really do, other than the Brett and Owen one, they didn't do a lot of high profile or meaningful matches most of the time to kick off pay-per-views. Usually it was just a fun high flying match, a tag match, get the crowd warmed up. There might be a storyline or an angle, but nothing too serious going on. But these are 2, primetime Hall of Fame caliber people in the prime of their physical careers, opening up the show. Ray had just gotten there, and that was pretty exciting for him just to be there. And so that's got to be one of the hottest ones when I think back to at least SummerSlams. A lot of those opening matches, in 91, there was a 6-man, in 90, there was a tag. 89, there was a tag. It's always just like really good wrestlers in there wrestling a good high profile match or high caliber match to get the crowd going. So this one, I think the 2 that you brought up is pretty good, Brett and Owen and Ray and Kurt. But I think after '02, you start seeing that a lot more. You start seeing world heavyweight title matches open up the show, and sometimes matches even for championships, where I don't recall that happening a ton of times, like in the '90s and the early 2000s.
Right. Yeah, you might get like a tag team title match, intercontinental title match.
Yeah.
Like this is like the perfect kind of match to set the tone for the night. Just like you said, good wrestlers. Storyline, from a storyline perspective, I mean, there's not a ton of backstory. Like you said, Rey Mysterio just showed up maybe about a month ago. This is actually his first pay-per-view in WWE. Kurt Angle, freshly shaven, pretty much, and kind of transitioning into his wrestling machine character, kind of less goofy, no more wigs, no more chugging milk, at least for this time. And they're really leaning into, because we're getting into the SmackDown 6 era, and we'll see that with another match on this card. And this is really representative of that with SmackDown and the in-ring quality, because like Ruthless Aggression, I mean, that's just when there's still like goofy storylines and stuff, but there's definitely a lot more emphasis on the in-ring stuff, and we see that all throughout this card. But yeah, like I said, I mean, so Kurt comes out, makes his entrance, then we hear Ray's music. Ray isn't coming out, but then lo and behold, that Rey Mysterio sneaks up behind Kurt Angle with the springboard drop kick, and then we're off to the races. And this is all within, like I said, within the first 2 minutes of hitting play on this show. Yeah. And then they're just bouncing around, reversals, Angle locks in the ankle lock, Ray escapes. But yeah, I mean, really just in general, this match, I thought their chemistry was great with Rey Mysterio, obviously his high flying abilities, and then kind of the opposite a little bit, and Kurt and all of his suplexing and amateur wrestling. I think these guys gelled really well. What did you think of this match?
I loved it. And I remember when it was announced, I was like, oh, this will be good. But I think it even surpassed what I was expecting it to do. Because just as a fan, I'm like, wow, these, Ray just got there. That was very exciting. And Angle, I'm like, this is going to be a really fun match. I didn't doubt it at all. But the way they used it to open the show with Ray jumping Angle from behind, and then just the overall just crowd excitement. The fog from the pyro was still in the arena. Nassau was jacked. It was one of those, like, you could almost visibly see the electricity kind of. Everybody was just jacked. And I ordered it on pay-per-view that night. And that opening match, I'm like, this is going to be a good show. I mean, it was just right within the first 3 minutes. These guys were gelling and working. They had chemistry like they've been working. This is their, 50th match together. And it was really, really good. Just the tightness, the crispness, especially looking back now, 20 years later, and see just how stupidly good they were when they were just physically at their peak. Yeah. And kind of coming off, I think just today, Angle has said that he cannot come back and wrestle again. Right. Due to some double knee surgery. So, 20 years ago, Angle was he was a machine. Yeah. Beast.
Well, retiring in wrestling, I mean, can you really ever take it too seriously? Yeah. We got goddamn Ric Flair about to wrestle.
I know. Yeah. Angle needs to lose his legs for me to believe that.
Yeah. So we'll see. But very timely for sure. Yeah. But yeah, with Ray being so new, the crowd isn't maybe a lot of the crowd probably, unless they watch him in WCW, isn't super familiar with his offense. So I got a kick out of seeing people, how they reacted to the 619, the West Coast pop, which only got a 2 count, and the crowd really bit. I was realizing as I was watching this, totally forgot who won this match, so I was able to kind of like suck myself into it a little bit. But then, so they're at the top at some point. Ray goes for spinning her and Conrad off the top rope, but Kurt counters it into an ankle lock, amazingly.
Yeah.
And that was really the story of the match and kind of the basis of the build-up, is that Kurt wanted to destroy the ankle of Rey Mysterio. And as soon as he got it on, it wasn't like he got it on several times and Ray got to the ropes. It was like once he got an ankle, it was done for.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, Angle's still larger than Ray, and
yeah,
you know, Ray had worked with some larger opponents near the tail end of WCW, but for the most part, most fans still considered him a cruiserweight wrestler. So I liked when they came in and they immediately put him in the ring with Angle and said he's going to be working with top guys right off the bat and doing it well and putting up a heck of a fight. But yeah, somebody like Ray, once a machine like Angle gets your ankle, tap out immediately. You know, but yeah, I think they brought Ray into the company very strongly, putting him with guys like that instead of, you know, with the Mexicools and all that other stuff.
Didn't come in on a lawnmower.
Yeah, you know, they didn't put him right in the, you know, the cruiserweight division or the undercard. You know, he was there because he was a recognizable name, marketable name. And back in WCW, he didn't use the words West Coast Pop or 619, or he didn't have 16 other names for his moves, you know, in WCW. So when he came in, I think WWE was all about marketing him and the mask and the look and the whole deal. And, you know, he's got his 20-year anniversary in the company too.
Yeah,
now,
Jesus.
right? So
yeah. These guys in this era, they're coming in. The Cenas, Batistas, Ortons.
Yeah.
It's
Rock.
He had a little bit of a part in this show, I would say.
Yeah.
But yeah, both guys looked good. Like you said, I mean, Ray eventually goes into the cruiserweight division, but I think this really set the tone, being able to hold his own with Kurt Angle, and then Kurt Angle would go on to dominate SmackDown for a few years. So both guys came out looking great.
A few years ago, I don't remember when, 5 or 6 years ago, I did a top 10 SummerSlam matches. Pretty sure I put this one like number 8. Of my all-time favorite, something like that, just because of how much I like the match.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you. It was great. The crowd was into it. So it cuts to Stephanie McMahon backstage after this match. She's very happy as the GM of SmackDown. It really set the tone. It really showed what SmackDown was capable of. She's like talking to some guy with a headset as she's walking down the hall, and she walks into her office, finds Eric Bischoff, who's sitting on her couch, the casting couch. And apparently there's only one office in this building, so they got to share it. Nassau Coliseum. Yeah, I guess. So budget's taking a hit. But yeah, so all night they're Stephanie and Eric, it'll like cut back to them. Sometimes it's like in the middle of matches, sometimes it's in between matches, taking jabs at each other for various reasons. And I always love the competition aspect of the brand split. Were you a fan of that back in the day?
I was willing to give it a chance because at this point it was only 4 months old or something. I mean, not even that, I don't think. So it just started. I didn't really know how they were going to handle the competition thing after swallowing up WCW, and I was concerned about that. So I guess they did the only thing they could do, other than perhaps relaunching WCW would have been nice. But doing it this way, I had not grown soured on it yet. I was like, okay, let's see. Especially at this point, we still had the one champion, and it was kind of floating over. And then the competition, Eric and Stephanie made things really fun with the cheap shots and the sexual innuendos and the tension between them and all that stuff. You could tell they were about to kiss on Halloween or whatever that was coming up. So, all that stuff that they were teasing, I was fine with it. I was like, well, what else are you going to do really? So I was willing to give it a shot, but it just seems like, shortly after this, they immediately started fumbling the ball on the brand split. And aside from the SmackDown 6 and some things that shows were doing well, to me, they never really gave off the vibe of them being two different shows. But here I was still fine with it and found it somewhat interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely still kind of a transitionary era because we're still kind of fresh off the heels of it being Vince's show versus Ric Flair's show, and then that whole thing happens, and they introduce new GMs, and the draft that they had a few months before is like, I think Vince just comes out and he's like, "Oh, people, you can all negotiate with the GMs, and if you want to go to the other brands," so it's like. Yeah,
they were changing the rules as they went along, literally right from the word go, it felt like with this. So they didn't even really, and flopping GMs, and then never felt like they had a true direction, until the SmackDown 6 really started getting rolling. And I think, a lot of fans appreciated what the work they were doing on SmackDown, but even that didn't last, with Heyman and everything. So,
right. Is it the Raw after this show where they introduced the World Heavyweight title?
I think so. It's either the Raw after this one or maybe the week after that. And I think Bischoff tries to hand it to Triple H, and then they do make him wrestle a match to win it. Right. So it might be the very next night. I'm trying to remember the footage. Like remember Triple H holding up the belt. I want to say he had like a bandage on his head, so it might have been.
I can see that in my head. I just can't remember
Yeah.
like where in the
So
timeline.
I think if he's still got the gaff on his head, it probably is the next night.
And that would make sense because coming off of his match with Shawn, and we'll get into that later, because obviously a brutal match, bloody, and he comes out with the bandage after that match. So it would make sense. Plus, I could see Eric Bischoff, because I haven't seen it really. I could see Eric Bischoff being like, "Oh, you had an impressive victory over Shawn Michaels. Here's a title." So that makes sense in my head. Speaking of blood, we got Ric Flair versus Chris Jericho, the front man of Fozzy, which they're really highlighting at this point. Do you have any memories of the Fozzy concert that they did on Raw a few weeks before this?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I remember a few times. And then I think even before this, when he was trying to be Moon Goose McQueen, I don't know if that was still happening around 2002, but when they first mentioned Fozzy, maybe a year or so after Jericho got there, and he was trying to be like Elias and Ezekiel. And I remember that a little bit. And then when they did the Fozzy concert, I mean, I remember it, but not many other details. And they were just there to perform a song. No Judas.
No Judas, not yet.
No Judas. Yeah, not yet on Judas. But yeah, I do remember that. Was he attacked by Flair on this? Is that what set this match up?
Boy, was he. So I think it was an episode of Raw. Jericho attacked Flair backstage as he was giving an interview or something. And then Flair retaliates by attacking Jericho during his performance, and then destroys all his instruments, stomps on the drums, breaks the guitars. And Flair's profusely bleed. I can't forget if he it was in the attack before, or if we just like clipped a mic stand or something. It sounds like a Flair thing that would happen.
Yeah. Buckets.
Classic Flair fashion.
Yeah.
But yeah, speaking of Flair, I mean, pre-Evolution Flair is it's an interesting one, because he had a weird 2002, because he had the whole thing where he was part owner of the WWE, and then he just kind of slowly transitioned out of that. No real reason, just kind of became a competitor because he wanted to. He had a great match with Taker at WrestleMania, but after that, he had like a weird heel turn too, which I didn't remember, against Austin. It was like him and Big Show versus Austin.
Yeah.
So kind of like a directionless, I guess I would say, Flair before Evolution. What are your thoughts on like this time period? I guess like 2002 for Flair.
He was just on the bounce back. I was in the arena the night after Survivor Series when he came back in Charlotte.
Oh, really?
And that was really cool, because there was kind of rumblings that he might be there, and Lawler came back in the company the same night. And I was excited to see him, but I felt like he was going to be more of the suit wearing Ric Flair, and when he did the deal with Vince, he might stay in that role. Then when they went into 02 and I saw how good he worked with Vince at the Rumble, because physically he didn't look too great in the last year or so of WCW. So the match he had with Vince was really fun. Like you said, then he had the match with Taker at WrestleMania. So I felt WWE was going to try to use him. The heel turn was where it got a little confusing to me, because that was tied in with so much stuff. Austin walking out, and WWF name change. And then Vince, I think in his head, decided he wanted to get back in control of both of his brands. So they did that angle. But I was happy to see Flair back in the ring and working. But yeah, he didn't have anything concrete going on, but he was still in the ring with like big names. It was Vince, then it was Taker, then it was Austin, until he walked out. And I don't know what he did between then and SummerSlam. But
he faced Eddie at King of the Ring, I believe it was.
Okay, yeah. So he was in the ring working with big names, like back, getting pay-per-view matches and stuff. So I was fine with it, because I thought it was going to be our last hurrah for Ric Flair. Yeah. Even back then, 20 years ago, I thought every match Flair had might be the last one I ever see him in. And he's about to have a match next month. So it blows my mind. But I liked seeing Flair back. I was okay with it, in terms of how they were using him. And then it really got better when he joined Evolution. I think that was a perfect fit for him.
Yeah, he definitely found his character for sure when he joined up with Triple H, and kind of, because that's kind of what's missing at this point, is that he has charisma, but he's not like peak Ric Flair charisma, but he finds it eventually. Are you going to buy Ric Flair's last match?
Oh, do I have to buy that to see it?
I think it's like $200 or something. Didn't I read that somewhere?
I'm not giving Ric Flair a dime of my money. No, I love and respect Ric Flair, but he is always so hard up for money. When I went on the Jericho cruise a couple years ago, he was the only one charging like ridiculous amounts to see him and meet him and stuff. And he's always just too much wanting the money all the time. I'm like, didn't you save anything, dude? So no, I'm not gonna give him a dime. Nothing against him. I'm just.
Look, man, you might get to see a man die in the ring. That's not every day.
Well, I'm sure the video will be out. I mean, how long? It's not going to be an Iron Man match, so I'm sure there's going to be ways to get the clip out. But I'll
check out the GIFs afterwards.
Yeah, the
but,
GIFs. Yeah, that's all you need.
That's all you need.
GIFs. Check out his bumps.
Watch him bust out a Canadian destroyer or some shit in his last
if
match.
he does, then wow. Then wow.
Props to him.
Yeah.
But yeah, to your point, here in 2002, I mean, he's in decent. I don't know how old he is at this point. He's because people just looked older back then.
Mid 50s, I think, at this point.
Yeah, he looks 70 at this point, but he's like in shape 70.
Yeah.
But it's crazy that it was 20 years ago and he's still going. But Jericho, kind of in the same vein, not a lot going on with him. Like he lost the title at WrestleMania and he's kind of been floating along for a little bit. So this match kind of has that element of like, okay, there's two guys that aren't doing anything. Let's put them in a match together. But a cool showdown nonetheless between these two guys, two big names. And it's really the Walls of Jericho versus the Figure Four is really the theme of this. And then you have Jericho is at the height of his like cocky character. I don't know what his nickname. He has a new nickname every week.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
King of the World.
I don't know what he's using here either. King of the World, maybe. Didn't he have that song that came out? Maybe he's the King of the World now.
Yeah, he was a living legend for a little bit.
Living legend. Okay, yeah, living legend. Oh, hey, and we got to shout out. I don't know if you noticed, but Ric Flair came out to his 1990s WWE theme for this match.
I noticed that. I wasn't sure if that was like a dub over or if that's what he came out.
No, I think it's the real. I think they've only done this twice. There was another pay-per-view that they also did. If this is a live stream, I could just ask the people in the chat, and they were like, "Oh, they always let me." Every time I have a question like this, like just earlier when we were trying to figure out the Triple H when he got handed the title, they just let us know exactly the time, date, and which with the very minute of the hour it happened on. But I don't. I think they only did it one other time. I think the pay-per-view is in Canada, and it was just random. There was no reason for it. They just had him come out to his 90s theme, which really I actually kind of like better. I don't know why, than the one we're used to. But that theme Flair had in his 1 year run in 92 and 93, or 91 and 92 in WWE, I loved it. And they used it here for some reason. Don't know why.
Maybe it's, big Summerslam, biggest party of the summer. Yeah, let's bust out a new theme.
Bust out, old school.
Or old school theme, yeah. But it's a decent match. You got Jericho. He keeps like there's one point where he taunts when he's on the top rope, and this allows Flair to take advantage. So a lot of this match is like the dirtiest player in the game versus another dirty player, and Chris Jericho. Yeah. And there's one point, Flair goes for the Walls of Jericho, but this gets countered by Jericho. So Jericho locks in the Figure Four. Flair gets to the ropes. He grabs the rope and taps out at the same time. But I guess the ref saw it as he grabbed the rope first. So that's not Little Nate. Oh, yeah, what's Little Nate? Oh, it's all he's in cahoots. It's a conspiracy.
Yeah, he's in cahoots. Yeah. Well, did you see what Jericho? I liked what you said about kind of the dirtiest player in the game competition, because Jericho had a brilliant heel move. He went over to the turnbuckle pad and tried to just mess with it. Looked like he was going to take it off, but it was just a distraction. So Lil Nate runs over there to fix it. Then he unravels his tape and chokes Ric Flair out while the referees mess. I'm like, that's outdoing Ric Flair right there. I thought that was a brilliant heel move by Jericho to just kind of distract Lil Nate. So even if Lil Nate tried to be in cahoots with Rick, Jericho still outsmarted him.
Exactly. Yeah. I noted that as well. That was really clever. But then, so Jericho thinks he made Flair tap out, and he's pissed off that Lil Nate shoves him, turns around, gets chopped by Flair, and Jericho goes flailing into the ref. Lil Nate goes down, and this allows Flair to hit the low blow, his finishing move, followed by the Figure Four for the tap out. So ultimately, while Jericho had his moments of heeldom, he can't beat Flair. He's the dirtiest, so he gets the win.
Ate the low blow.
Yep. So it was a fun battle of these two. Flair's not a heel, but they're both with heelish tendencies. So it was a fun watch, I thought.
Yeah, and I'm glad we got this match down and done on a major pay-per-view. I'm glad that there's a Ric Flair and Chris Jericho match that exists on a big pay-per-view that's not a throwaway one or forgotten match or something. I mean, this is on one of the best SummerSlams ever. So, at least it's a one-on-one match we got done, and we were never sitting here like, how come Jericho and Flair never worked together or something? I'm glad we at least got that, even if it was a strange time period, kind of like you said, probably two guys that need a pay-per-view match but aren't currently doing anything. Mash them together.
Yeah, kind of fell into place.
See if you can make some salad, and they did a good one
for sure. Yeah. That little mini dream match of sorts. But then after that, it cuts to Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman in their locker room, and I guess it didn't show it on Peacock, but I guess like a Hulk Hogan DVD commercial showed before this, and then Heyman references it, and he's like, because he's talking about it, and he's talking about how Lesnar killed Hulkamania a few weeks ago in SmackDown with a bunch of F5s and a bear hug that made Hogan bleed out his mouth. It was really brutal.
It was awesome.
You're a big fan of seeing Hogan.
I was supposed to be at that show and I didn't go. My buddy went. I think it was in Richmond when I lived on the East Coast, and I was going to go because I went to all the shows in the Carolinas, and for some reason, because I went to a couple other shows before Summerslam, but for some reason just didn't go to that one. And he came back bragging about it. He's like, it was awesome. Brock destroyed Hogan, and I'm like, I would have really liked to have been there in the arena for that, and I just missed it.
Yeah,
that's what they were referencing. Yeah, I watched it on Peacock too just a little while ago. When they cut back to that, you could tell that something was playing on the monitor. So it must have been that Hogan DVD or that Hogan video package or whatever it was.
Yeah. But definitely sweetly building to the main events later in the show. But after that, we got a little more SmackDown 6 action. We got Eddie Guerrero versus Edge. Man, these guys had such good chemistry. I don't think they ever missed in a match they had together. I mean, do you have like a particular favorite because they had a bunch of matches in this time period?
Yeah, not really. I'm not really good at remembering these specific matches between those two or which ones really stand out. I mean, I liked them working together. I'm assuming this might have been the first, or
I think it was the first.
Unless they worked before Eddie got let go, because I know he just came back a couple months before this. So unless they worked in like 2000 when he was a Radicals, they might have. But in terms of any sort of one-on-one thing here, I think this was the first. And again, just like Angle and Ray, like peak physical condition for both of these guys.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think they've ever been in better shape. So made the match just that much better, and you could tell what bubbling stars they were. Edge coming out to Rob Zombie. Loved it.
You a fan of the Rob Zombie?
I like the Rob Zombie theme. I like that one for Edge. I just thought it fit him at that time period. I thought it was perfect. And so whenever you hear it on Peacock or somewhere when it's not dubbed out, it's like, oh, cool. I like that. I always like that Edge theme.
Yeah, it made him feel like a star, because this is like when they were first experimenting with like real music as theme songs.
Right.
So it made him stand out. They're like trying to give him like a rock star kind of aura about him, and I think it worked for sure.
And he had it, because I heard them on commentary mention that this whole issue is because of some jealousy. Eddie's jealous that Edge is a sex symbol, but he's Latino heat, and that's how
Eddie's
Jim
pretty
Ross
sexy too.
Explain it. He's like, yeah, I mean, Eddie is fine. So I don't know what he's worried.
Biceps.
Yeah, I don't know what he's worried about, but apparently this whole thing, according to the commentary, because I was like, I wonder why these guys are actually feuding. I'm not even sure, and apparently it was based in some sort of professional or jealousy that Eddie has for Edge getting all the ladies or something. So stealing all the mamacitas away from him or something like that.
That's what he does. That Adam.
That's what he does. Keep your mamacitas away from Edge. He'll take them.
To this day. I mean, he's in better shape probably now than he was here.
Yeah. Hide your kids. Hide your mamacitas.
But I know. I think they had another match at the next pay-per-view, and I know they had a street fight, I believe, or a ladder match on SmackDown at some point, which is the one I remember. That's the one that sticks out to me. But like you said, there's kind of just personal jealousy is really the foundation for the storyline. Nothing too complex here. Just really SmackDown. They're really the SmackDown 6. I don't think they ever like said that, but there was one point. There was like, who was in the ring? It was like Rey Mysterio, John Cena, Edge, and someone else. And it was like, this is the future of SmackDown. And they even said that about Edge as he comes out. So they're really pushing that home, building up the new talent, which is funny to say about Edge, building up new talent.
Yeah, and everything would build here, I guess, with Eddie and Edge. I mean, this was just kind of the start of it. And it sounds like it gets a lot better.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And the story here. So one other note is that Edge is coming off a shoulder injury, which he got in a steel cage match with Kurt Angle a few months ago. So that's really the story of the match, is because there's at one point Edge ties up Eddie in the ropes and he goes for a spear. He hits one spear and he goes for a second one. Eddie moves out of the way and Edge goes torpedoing out to the floor and hurts his shoulder. And then from that point on, Eddie starts wearing down the shoulder. There's one spot which is crazy. So Eddie grabs the wrist of Edge and he goes up, runs up the ropes like he would do like a head scissors typically or something like that. But this time he comes off the top into an arm breaker, which I thought was sick looking. And continues to wear down the shoulder after that. Eventually Edge fights back, face buster. He does a suplex from the inside of the ring to the outside, which I thought was pretty fun.
Yeah, that's a good spot.
And Taz had a funny line. He said, Edge should be DQ'd for that. It's we're in WCW 94, apparently.
Yeah, I know, right? I love when the announcers get partial.
A professional, that Taz.
Yeah.
Edge still, crossbody to the outside, face buster on the inside. He goes for a spear, but gets countered with a beautiful drop kick by Eddie right to the shoulder. So continuing the attack on the shoulder is the story here. And then even a frog splash to the shoulder of Edge, which also was pretty gnarly, but only gets a 2 count somehow. Edge's execution for a 2 count. So really good false finishes here at the end. Eddie goes for another like walk up something. I don't know, another arm breaker or something, but Edge whips him off and then hits the spear for the win. So Edge gets the win here. And just two, I mean, at this point, young talents that have great futures ahead of them.
Yeah, it was a really good match, Eddie. I always loved how Eddie could jump off the top rope and do that like roll thing. That was kind of the setup for the finish here. How he could even be jumping up from 8 feet and he would just roll like it was so smooth, just into a somersault right back on his feet and then to eat the spear. But every time he missed a splash or missed a swanton or something, the way he'd roll through it like that, he's just stupidly talented.
Yeah, this one specifically like made my butthole pucker up a little bit because he almost landed on his neck.
Yeah,
but those big ass shoulders and neck of Eddie. Great stuff there, but some maybe less than great stuff after. So we have the Real Americans backstage with Coach.
Un-Americans.
I typed in Real Americans. I don't know. I had Hulk Hogan on my mind. Not Real Americans. They're the Unreal Americans. Yeah. But so Lance Storm, Christian, and Test backstage. What are your thoughts on this faction? This is kind of they're in the beginnings of their being a faction and their branding and all that.
I guess I didn't hate it, but again, it was going back to that again, because I mean, all three of these guys are Canadian. So I'm like, well, we kind of did this sort of at 97. You're never going to recreate that type of atmosphere. I don't think the intent was to make them baby faces in Canada. I don't think, but they might have been at the time. So I loved the three of them together. I thought they were perfect, but just going after the America thing, I mean, that really limits you who you can feud with. Of course, you're going to feud with Undertaker and, and guys like that. And just, I thought the trio was good, but maybe they could have done a different type of faction that would have allowed them to run a little longer, maybe. But I didn't hate him. I mean, Christian, after the promo we saw him cut last night when he was talking backstage here, is like, just kind of hearing him in heel Christian mode and stuff. He was great. Even just back then, he was so good at that. So I think individually, I'm just a huge fan of all three of them. So I always thought Test was great, and I love Storm and Christian. So nothing against all of them, but just maybe not my favorite faction ever. That's all.
Yeah. It's definitely a very I guess generic premise for a faction. Although with context, I mean, we're in middle 2002. I mean, the height of the patriotism in the country is at a high at this point after September 11th. So I guess they're capitalizing on that weird way to phrase it. But
that is true. I didn't think about that, especially just less than a year after that, even, that this is all going on. And they're not doing the Muhammad Hassan. They're not sympathizing with anybody. They're just kind of anti-American, which, was going to get strong reactions from the crowd, especially 11 months after our buildings came crashing down, So, I guess it makes sense.
Yep. And then they come out with an upside down American flag, which I guess
that was their deal, the upside down flag. Yeah,
because your beliefs are upside down.
I know. Yeah, we do have some. That's true. We have some upside down beliefs. Yeah, I love that.
I guess so.
Yeah, that was their deal.
Well, speaking of upside down, we got Goldust here and Booker T. So I always loved this duo. It's like on paper, it doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense, but I think it was a big, because at this point, Booker T is red hot. I mean, we would see that culminate at WrestleMania the next year, fighting for the world title. But people were really into Booker T. He's kind of a freshly turned into a babyface. The Spinnerooni's hot. I mean, and him and Goldust. I think Goldust really contributed to that because he kind of brought out that personality in Booker T. Because before he was just, the WCW guy. But I think that really brought out something in Booker T that he was missing when he first came.
Yeah, you could see his personality more. You could see his comedic timing more because Booker was a really good reactor. Just having crazy shit happen around Booker T is all you really needed to do, and he can just do that funny look or tell me I didn't just see that or something like that. Just the way he would react or interact with crazy people was what made him so funny. So putting him with Goldust was the perfect thing to do.
What the hell?
Because, he's just Booker T, just watching him go just losing his mind. I thought they were great together, and Booker T didn't have to do much to be funny like that whenever somebody around him was going real crazy, but he was also able to come out of his own shell and show that he really is a funny guy. Booker can be funny and a serious guy as well, and he can have fun, which in wrestling, which is what you're supposed to do while being a top championship level star at the same time. So he needed that because in WCW he was just really well-respected, hardworking Booker T, which is great, but you do need a little bit more than that. And if WWE is going to bring him in and as the bad guy from WCW in the competition, and treat him like crap for the first 8 months he was there. You know, coming back around a little bit on him and now making him a baby face. The fans can start warming up to him. The spinneroonie, like you mentioned, and the comedic stuff with Goldust. And a couple months later, he'd be getting that title shot at WrestleMania the next year. Yeah. So, you know, they were on the right track with him here in terms of making him somebody that the fans were excited to see, entertained by, and didn't just want to see get his ass kicked every week. Yeah. Like WWE intended for him to be at first. You know, that first year he was there, it felt like.
Yeah, it was a little rough. But yeah, he definitely, he's finding a stride here. And I mean, to your point, Booker, I mean, he could just read you a food menu and it'd be hilarious. Yeah. So, like, not a hard guy to make likable for the TV screen. The Goldust starts off the match for his team. He gets his ass kicked for most of it. And it's various like ways, because Goldust is trying to make the tag to Booker T. What happens here? There's one point where Goldust makes the tag, but Lance Storm on the apron, I think, distracts the ref. So Booker T gets in, he starts his hot tag, the crowd's into it, and then Nick Patrick's like, no, you gotta make that tag.
Yeah, they did another spot where Booker was out of position. One of them was out of position to make the tag. Yeah. And when I think it was Goldust went over to make the tag, and Christian just ran over there and grabbed him by the neck and drug him back in the middle of the ring. It was like really good, like aggressive tag team wrestling, like split the ring off. He was just there. I think Booker was on the outside, not on the apron, trying to get up to make the tag, and Christian just drug Goldust away. It might have been reversed with the two of them, but I really like just that little spot because it's not something you see in tag team matches all the time. You know, just a great save like that of actually caring about stopping the guy from making the tag. Never seen it done quite in that way. Right.
Yeah. To your point. I mean, this is just like a really like classic tag team wrestling match. Like tag team matches can sometimes just be a series of singles matches, but this one, the Un-Americans specifically did really good stuff. Like, cause like you said, I think it was Lance Storm lured Booker off the apron. So Booker's like, wait, what the hell? And then this is when Goldust breaks free and he's like, oh, Booker's not there. So it's like little things like that. And it all contributed to, you know, the crescendo when Goldust made that tag finally. So Booker T finally gets in, just wrecking shop, scissors kicks, just chopping. It cracked me up. He was chopping Christian. It was like a regular chop and an overhand chop. It felt like it went on for 20 seconds. Just kicking the hell out of him. But then it does like a double scissors kick onto both of them.
Yeah, after he got that hot tag, he just knocked them both out with one shot. That was good stuff.
The Christian eventually fights back, goes for the I'm Prettier. Booker T reverses, and then but Storm's in, goes for a kick, but Booker T ducks, and Nick Patrick is laid out. And then this, of course, Test gets in, the third Un-American. Boot of Doom to Booker T, knocks him out, ref revives, Christian makes the pin, and gets the win. So those damn Un-Americans get the win. Those damn Canadians.
Test had such a good big boot. God, it was so just crisp. He nailed Booker with that. Yeah, that was good. I kind of think that was the right outcome. Storm and Christian are your cagey, you know, heel wrestlers. Yeah, very serious, very Canadian. And Booker T and Goldust are damn odd couple, just goofy shit happening all the time. They should be able to outsmart those guys, considering that they should have like a little bit stronger chemistry in terms of like who they are and what their goals are. And Booker T and Goldust just trying to figure out how to manage this tag team together. So I can kind of understand the outcome that they did here. Feels like the Un-Americans should have picked that up. Plus, when you think about where the card is, Test has got Taker up next or here in a couple of matches.
A little bit of heat for Test.
No, he ain't winning that. So at least at the time, I remember I'm like, oh yeah, he helped Un-Americans win this match and retain the tag. This was a tag title match, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and retain the titles because their other teammate isn't going to win later. Right. So I remember at the time watching it thinking that made all kinds of sense.
No, yeah, for sure. Yeah, then I think Goldust and Booker T eventually win the titles. I could be wrong on that.
Yeah, they have to. It better. I don't even remember. But yeah, if you're going to put those two together, you better belt them up. They're too good. Yeah, they probably do win them and drop them. I don't remember the title history between those guys, but I'm sure they do get their hands on it. I would hope.
There's a lot of odd couples as tag team champions in this time period. Yeah. I think wasn't like Hurricane and Kane the champions at some point or something?
Hurricane and Kane. Yeah, just like Kane and X-Pac were back in the day. Yeah. Kind of same thing. We had, Tajiri was tag champs with somebody maybe as well that felt a little odd. Or no, maybe he was with Tori. Maybe that's
the odd couple. Tajiri and Big Show or something were a team.
Yeah. WWE likes to do that and put people together and just put the tag belts on them. Edge and Hogan.
Yeah. We're fresh off of that as well. Yeah. Man, after that, we're at the Worlds with Jamie Noble and Nydia.
I sent my submission in, didn't win.
Were you final
like
3, not final 2?
Yeah, I was final 3. That's why I wasn't up there.
Man, what a shame.
WWF New York, the makeout contest.
Oh man, the coveted makeout contest.
The coveted.
It's fun. It seems like every pay-per-view they have some dumbass segment at the World. I think the last pay-per-view was the Golden Thong Award was awarded to Tori Wilson, and Dawn Marie was all pissed. And now, we have a makeout contest. No women's wrestling match on this card, but we have a makeout contest. Yeah. And we're down to the final 2. It's just 2 random jamokes, and Nydia's has to choose which one she wants to make out with. And then you got Jamie Noble. Apparently
narrating this whole thing is great. Screaming, "You like that, boy?"
Yeah, I think he did. I think he did.
Yeah.
I don't remember the cuck Jamie Noble. This is an element of his
I don't recall that gimmick. Would have made a good shirt. Yeah, just hearing him screaming into the mic. "Which one you want, Nydia?" I loved Jamie Noble back then. He had me cracking up.
We're going to Applebee's, baby.
It's
such good shit. So, that's a thing that happened. But then along the same line, we got Eric Bischoff and Stephanie on a separate couch backstage. And Jesus, so Eric's like, man, I would love to see Nydia on Raw. She's somebody that really knows her place in the business, which is a little rough. It is, by the way, we're fresh off of the, I think it was pudding. It was a pudding match. Or mud match or something. It was something brown. On Raw, which was in my hometown, so I could have watched that live, but unfortunately, but
should have.
maybe one day we'll get back to that. And Stephanie says a woman's place in this business is on top because, well, sex, right?
Yeah, so she hints that she likes it on top. Not surprised. You can tell.
Yeah, it's just it writes itself.
Not surprised.
Right?
Yeah, sounds just like Stephanie.
Yeah, I mean. Well, now I got that in my head, but we got the Intercontinental title is on the line after that. Chris Benoit, the champion, versus Rob Van Dam. And at this point, so this is actually an interpromotional match. Chris Benoit.
Interpromotional, intercontinental.
Wow. It just worked itself out perfectly.
Rolls right off.
So Benoit on SmackDown, RVD on Raw. So this is pretty much determining where the Intercontinental title would reside, which doesn't really matter because I think it just gets unified with the world title pretty soon after this.
Oh yeah, it does. That's right.
For a few months, and then they bring it back, and then the U.S. title comes into play. So, when I was watching, this is a really good match. Like, definitely a good match. RVD and Chris Benoit, it's going to be good. Really stiff from both guys. Are just so intentful with their offense. I had a tough time. Like, it felt like this and the Edge and Eddie match kind of blended together. It felt like I was almost watching the same thing at a certain point.
Yeah.
I think there was even like shoulder work in this match too. I don't know. What do you think about it?
Yeah, when I think back to this pay-per-view, I get those two matches mixed up. I sometimes think it's RVD and Eddie wrestling.
Right. Yeah.
Which they might wrestle at the next SummerSlam or the SummerSlam before. Maybe that's what I'm thinking
We're
of.
coming off a feud between those two. They had wrestled I think 2 pay-per-views before this.
Okay, that must have been it. Yeah. But like on paper, this might have been my favorite match on the show because they're 2 of my favorites ever. I think it was the longest match. It definitely went 20 plus minutes and maybe more. I'm not sure. But it's one of the coolest matches to me because both guys are so legit. They're about as legit as you can get without having legit fighting experience, really, I think. They're about as legit as pro wrestlers you can get. RVD's got the legs and the flexibility and the martial arts, and Benoit can just wrestle you into the dirt. And both guys were super well respected, and the second biggest title is on the line. This is my favorite type of SummerSlam match. This is Brett perfect. This is that type of thing. For the Intercontinental title, when you have like 2 of the best in the company and the most well-respected working for the number 2 belt. I expect this match on every SummerSlam. And I swear it's been a long time since we've really gotten these, I think, matches like this that felt like this.
An Intercontinental title match on pay-per-view? Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a long time, or just a good one that matters. And, then they had the interpromotional tie in there because Benoit had just won the title and jumped to SmackDown or something. Is that what happened?
Yeah.
So, and then they had Schimmel and Howard Finkel doing the separate announcing.
That was funny, yeah.
So you added all that to it, plus just the match itself was brutal. I think it's the first time I've seen RVD's hair really come all the way out before.
Thank you. I was like,
This,
what's different about him? But then
yeah,
it's
like he was, because he's facing Benoit, he's getting his ass kicked, so he's a little more disheveled, and his hair's
Benoit has
out.
no regard for his scrunchie, I guess.
Yeah, I'd probably grow hair if I faced Benoit. So yeah, he's gonna do a number on you.
It's gonna knock it out of you.
Yeah.
But yeah, really good match. I got RVD's kicks. I think he even busts Benoit's lip open at one point. And then you got Benoit being Benoit. You know how impactful he is. But at some point, well, there's like one spot that I really enjoyed. So Benoit, because he's very known for the three Germans. And then you got Eddie with the three amigos. But Benoit here busts out a Northern Lights variation of it, because like I said, he was working on the arm of RVD throughout this match. And it's like an arm trap Northern Light suplex, but he keeps like kind of like Matt Jackson does, where it's like he does it over and over again. Yeah. So that was really cool. I had never seen him do that before. But,
yeah, me neither.
And transitions right from that into a crossface. So I was like, wow, this is a really dire situation for RVD, but he eventually gets to the ropes, or he fights out of it or something. RVD fights into a crossface himself onto Benoit, but Benoit fights out of it pretty quickly. But ultimately, they're both on the top rope. Benoit goes for a back suplex off the top, but RVD counters into a crossbody, and it hits the 5-star frog splash for the win. So almost like kind of an abrupt finish, but I mean, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, especially when he just countered that top rope suplex spot and then went right into the frog splash. I thought there would be another sequence before then, but that was still just a really good match. We saw a new IC champion crowned at SummerSlam, which is always fun to see.
Yeah.
And I really, really just liked watching this match. These are my favorite type of matches in WWE, is the RVDs and Benoits, the Benoits and Jerichos, the Eddies and Jerichos and the Kurts and guys like that. Like all those guys, I could watch them forever. So I was really, really happy with this one. Wish it was matches that we still got regularly.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's the epitome of an Intercontinental title match.
Yeah,
that work rate style, and that's what these two were at this time, at least. But that, I know what you're thinking. You're like, man, I need some more Eric Bischoff and Stephanie McMahon. Well,
yeah, always.
Don't worry, I got you. So Eric Bischoff is like, 'cause obviously he's happy because his Raw boy won the Intercontinental title, and then Steph does this really like Disney villain laugh and then walks away. So I guess she has something in mind. I can't remember.
I can't either.
Because I think Undertaker is on Raw at this point, and he eventually comes to SmackDown. So I don't know if that's what she's alluding to, or the SmackDown tag team titles. I don't know, but
maybe, yeah. She's definitely got something. She's not too concerned with it. It felt like when Bischoff was bragging.
Yeah, damn it, I do need a chat. This is where I'll call in if you know. But after that, we got, you alluded to this earlier, we got Undertaker versus Test, the third un-American. And then obviously you got Test coming out again with the upside down American flag. Yeah, got Taker representing what America is, motorcycles. And fucking no Limp Bizkit at this point, but
yeah, he was still doing that. This is before they added the lyrics, I think.
Yes, yeah,
to that dumb song he used or whatever. This is just the instrumental version, what I think is better than whatever that other song was that he used. But like, who was going to think that? Oh yeah, Test is going to un-Americans just with a clean sweep here on the show. This was easily the most predictable match on the show. Looking at it here, I think you can make an argument for almost anybody to win any of these matches except for this one.
Yeah, unless, I mean, maybe it's like a litmus test for Test to see if it can hang in the main event, which I guess it was, whether win or lose.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you think Test should have had a bigger role in his run, or do you think it kind of?
Yes and no. I think he was lucky. I think he got actually was lucky enough to have a pretty sizable role there, considering all the people he was on the roster with. All right. And he came in as the Motley Crue bodyguard or something, and kind of joined the corporation, and he kind of had a slow start. But once he had that SummerSlam match with Shane 3 years before this,
yes,
a lot of people compared him to a little more athletic Diesel or Kevin Nash. He had the long legs and the leather, and he could, perform some of the moves. He could do the big boot and the stuff in the corner, but he could come off the top with an elbow. He could do some things physically that Nash couldn't, despite being a little bit smaller. So he just, maybe lacked the size and lacked the charisma that Nash had. But I was okay with Test. I maybe didn't love him when they tried to push him in the ECW when he cut his hair and he was more like the killing machine. But here in that like 2000 to 2002 might've been the time when I liked Test the most. Because of his similarities a little bit to Nash, and that he could just do a little bit more physically in the ring. So I did not dislike Test in any way. Met Test a couple times at some Waffle Houses in North Carolina.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. So yeah, after shows, yeah, he was met him one time. He was wearing an Edge shirt, which was kind of cool. All the boys would always you see them all over the place. They'd all be wearing each other's shirts. I guess that was the rule on the road. You can't wear your own shirt. So I saw Val Venus in an Undertaker shirt, and saw the Hardy Boys in an Austin shirt, and everybody just wore each other's shit all the time back then. It was cool. But I actually kind of liked Test, but didn't think that he should have been higher or anything. I'm like, oh, they should have put the world title on Test. I never felt that way about Test. I just like Test enough, to like him. Yeah, don't think he was unfairly treated or anything.
I think it was an appropriate amount of success that he got.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you think? This is kind of random, but I recently watched that Fear Factor episode that they did with the WWE. I guess it was F at the time, but Edge was on it. And he was so chill. Like, he was such like a cool dude. I almost wonder, like, do you think he should have spent more time as a babyface than a heel? Because here's a heel, and I don't know, it doesn't like pop up the screen to me.
Yeah, especially when you see him in like not a WWE environment, and you see how they speak or you see how they act or something, like, oh man, why didn't they try doing that with this guy? I mean, if they would have stuck Test with Edge and Christian, or with Angle, or had him do some segments with them, or some just funnier people or something, maybe you could have seen personality sides of him that you didn't know were there come out. But he was never really in those positions to really, show dimensions to his personality. Always seemed like the same type of guy to me.
Yeah.
Always just kind of a heel, always kind of an asshole. All the stuff he did with Stacy and all of that, that might have been after this.
The testicles.
Yeah, the testicles and all that. I think, if he tried to be more of a babyface, it would have been worth a shot anyway.
Yeah.
I think he was on the right track. I mean, he got a great ovation when he beat Shane McMahon at SummerSlam.
That's probably my favorite Test match of all time.
Yeah, like when he's like kissing Stephanie or something, in the ring, and in the background of the crowd just standing and going nuts. And, they were pulling for him. He had to have a story and a reason for the fans to pull for him, but they were. That was probably peak babyface Test.
Yeah.
Should have ran with that. But I think they mishandled that because, his character should have been more mad.
Yeah, they never really, they might have had like a quick match on Raw, like Test and Triple H, but they never capitalized on that at all.
Yeah, instead it was Triple H was in feuds with other people and stuff, and Test just kind of faded away. So he got a lot of criticism for that. I remember people were like, "What's this character should care more," or whatever. But yeah, I think maybe a combination of a little bit WWE could have tried more with him, but like you said, appropriate amount of success.
Then TNA was a thing, and then it's all from there. But yeah, if there's any opportunity to show what you're made of, it's with the match against The Undertaker at SummerSlam.
Yeah.
Decent match, nothing to write home about, really. Right. I mean, you got Taker, obviously the American badass, so the story writes itself.
Yeah.
At some point, Test gets Taker up for the pump handle slam, but Taker slides out, goes for a choke slam. Test blocks it, and then goes for the big boot, but gets countered into a choke slam. So you got a little good back and forth there. Only gets a 2 count, which made Test look pretty strong at that point, because not a lot of people were kicking out of Taker's choke slam at this point.
No, not at all.
And of course, those damn Canadians again come out. We got Storm and Christian back out here. Taker just shits on both of them. Choke slams for both. Huge choke slams. I forget. Well, the first one, it was like the guy went like to the rafters.
Really, I love when he gets up that high.
I think it was Lance Storm. But then, this distracts Taker. Test out of nowhere with that big boot again. But again, only gets a 2 count. And so Test is pissed, just used his best move. So he goes out, grabs a chair, but that chair gets booted back into his face by Taker. And then Taker breaks out the tombstone for the win. So I don't know if he just didn't have faith that he could do the last ride on Test, or if he just wanted to maybe just, bring it back for old time's sake. I don't think he's done it, really. Well, he did it against Flair, I think. So it was only really big matches where he would pull it out at this point. But
so he won with a tombstone. I didn't think about the last ride. He didn't even try to get him up or try to catch him on the top rope or something, just get him up that way and throw him down. But tombstone for the win was pretty old school. And at least it gave Test like a pay-per-view match against Undertaker too, so they knew and they felt enough about him to put him in the ring with Taker at a big pay-per-view, even though he really didn't have much of a chance to win. Kind of felt like this match was a little bit of a buffer too. Just had that great IC. We're about to go into HBK and Shawn. You needed something in between that wasn't going to keep you on the edge of your seat too much. And I know with me, I wasn't on the edge of my seat too much with those two guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then you have that iconic visual of Taker goes into the crowd after the match, grabs an American flag, gets on the turnbuckle, has it behind him, just Cool shot. That's really what it's less about Taker versus Test and more about Taker versus Canada. So that's really the resolution we all wanted, and it's a happy ending, I guess.
Nassau's awfully close to Canada. Now that I think about it, right? Yeah. They're damn near up there.
Yeah. They feel the cold, so they're more pissed off at them. But man, so next match is one of the best of all time, in my opinion. An unsanctioned match. Triple H versus Shawn Michaels. Whew, so this is, I believe JR said 1,609 days since Shawn's last match. So a little over 4 years. Man, what a build to this match. Because you were watching at this time. How surreal was it to see Shawn back in the ring after such a long layoff?
Yeah, I was relieved because every time he had come back prior to that and been on TV as a referee or just appearing or something, it didn't feel, you didn't feel like he was there. He was back. You could just, this time you could tell it was different. He was in better shape. He had cleaned himself up. And I was at, I think that it was before the match was announced, I think, but I was at a show in Raleigh in the summer. And all I remember was a segment involving Brock, and it was Raw, Brock and Triple H and Shawn. Shawn was like wearing a red shirt, and he dove over the top rope to attack somebody. And I was in the crowd with my buddy, and I like elbowed him. I'm like, he's coming back. That's the first time. I was like, that's the first time he's gotten physical. He dove over and he's attacking somebody. He's going to wrestle again, you know? And then I think it was the next week or whatever it was that they worked all the deals out with, you know, and did the angle for SummerSlam. So I was happy to see him back. I was relieved that he seemed to be in a little bit better of a place. And coming back to work Triple H, just didn't know at that time if it was going to be a permanent thing, one match thing, you know, what it was going to turn out to be. But it was surreal because I started to give up hope. You know, I mean, I almost started to give up on him. I almost did because I felt like I thought he was going to come back in 1 year after WrestleMania 14. Right. I thought he would be back by the end of 98, 99. And as each year went on, and not only was he coming back, there was no talk of bringing him back. I just kind of started forgetting about him, you know? So I was, couldn't believe that not only came back, but came back to the level that he did. So yeah, it was definitely surreal, but I was super happy.
Yeah, for sure. Especially like you mentioned, they would bring him back for like little appearances here and there. I think he was even the commissioner for a few weeks or something like that. Yeah,
I just did a a review of Judgment Day 2000 when he was the ref for the Iron Man match. Right. And I was mentioning what terrible shape he was in. You know, he had no definition on his arms. He had a belly. Yeah, he looked skinny. He looked pale. I'm like, he just doesn't look like Shawn. He looks like somebody who's just he hasn't left his couch in 3 years or whatever. And I just remember, and a lot of that was probably just the drugs. And he wasn't in bad shape. He just wasn't in Shawn shape, you know, like we're used to seeing. And I just remember kind of being sad at his physical condition. So when he came back here, it was really cool to see him, you know, bulked up again and clearly focused and ready to work. And that was awesome.
When your whole character is premised on like you're a heartthrob, you're a sexy boy, and you're not sexy anymore, you're just a boy. Like it really.
He was trying to wear those little short shorts, and I'm like, they didn't work on him anymore. You know, he was trying to wear those little referee short shorts when he was the referee in that Judgment Day match, and his shirt became untucked, and then the shirt covered up the shorts, so it looked like he was just out there in a shirt and you know, like his nightgown or something. I'm like, he just didn't look right. I'm like, it was just different. So I was so happy to see him when they brought back into the DX thing, and you could tell, you know, when Shawn came back and joined the NWO, even I'm like, he's in better shape. He looks like he's in ring shape this time.
Yeah,
which is good.
And that's a whole weird thing too, the NWO element of it, because that's how they initially brought Shawn back, which is a weird thing in hindsight. But again, it's like we've seen Shawn come back here and there, so it's like, okay, maybe he's just here to pop in for a few weeks, be the leader of the NWO, and then maybe probably leave again.
Yeah, I thought it was cool when he came in as the NWO when they reenacted the high five thing with Nash in the ring. That was the first time I had seen that since their Razor and their Diesel and HBK days.
Two dudes with attitudes.
Days. Yep. Yeah, and that was just so awesome to see. But everything immediately crumbled. Nash got hurt, and you know, all the NWO thing didn't work.
Well, it's probably for the best.
Because it put him into this program.
Exactly. Yeah, and that kind of because initially this is something that I don't even think I ever knew of. The whole thing was when Shawn was in the NWO, they were going to try to bring in Triple H into the NWO. And it was on, was it Vengeance? Yeah, I guess it was Vengeance. They had a whole segment where Eric Bischoff and Stephanie McMahon were both like competing to get Triple H on their brands. And initially that was supposed to be an NWO segment where they were going to try to convince Triple H to join the NWO. So it kind of, all kind of ties in together because when the NWO disbanded, then you have the whole segment with Bischoff and Steph. Shawn comes out during that, and he basically convinces Triple H to join Raw because I guess Shawn is on Raw at that point, and brings him back because we're gonna have fun and we're gonna, like it'll be like the old days. It was the whole thing, and then like you said, they reunite as DX. They all come out with the shirts and the music, and they're doing up the whole if you know, or not if you smell, if the let's get ready to suck it thing. And as Triple H is about to finish his line, pedigree to Shawn Michaels. And then so pretty much turning heel at that point and then kicking it off. And then it ramps up the week after, I believe, when Shawn is found in the parking lot, just blood, his whole face is bloody, and there's a hole in the window of some car. So he clearly got his head shoved through a car window, and it's a whole like whodunit thing. And then there's like camera footage that shows Triple H and it was you, Hunter, that whole thing. So really, really cool build to this, and it's just cool to see Triple H versus Shawn Michaels at this point.
I know. I'm wondering if they just wanted to give us that DX moment, because it was weird to see those two guys at that stage doing the DX thing. Triple H was physically so different, looked different than he did back in his DX days. And I'm like, why didn't they? I just thought the better reveal for the heel turn would have been when he revealed that he was the one that smashed Shawn's head in the car, because he would already turn heel. And then he like felt bad about what happened to him. I'm going to vow to find out who happened. And then he turned heel again. I mean, he was already heel, but he just revealed that it was him. But I think I would have saved the whole heel turn for the security camera catching Triple H doing it. And then he smiles at the camera. You're damn right. It was me, Shawn. That to me should have been the heel turn.
Right.
Like when I look back on it, but he kind of already did the DX heel turn and then just reiterated his heel turn or something.
Or even if they would have just flipped it, maybe they do the attack on Shawn Michaels, and then maybe a few weeks go by, and then they reunite as DX, maybe, and then he pedigrees him, and then he grabs the mic afterwards, and he's like, "It was me that did it," or something like that.
Yeah, something like that, or whatever. Yeah, I just thought it would have been better because it felt like he just kind of did heel turn twice, and I'm like, did they do the whole first heel turn just so we could get the DX music and the shirts and just give the fans that experience one final time until 2006? But yeah, it was all really good setup. Just Shawn being back and getting physical, and obviously building to a pay-per-view match with somebody was all I needed to be happy.
Yeah, for sure. And then they go all out for it. I don't know if it was intended to be a one-off or not, but man, Shawn comes out, there's music and a shit ton of pyro, confetti just shooting it's like a wall of pyro he walks through, and there's just streamers everywhere. It's really cool. A really cool visual. Jeans, cowboy boots.
He had the chaps on, his sparkly chaps on over his jeans. I think he came out in those. I think so, and then he like danced them off. I think just for his entrance, he had him on. He had him on, and then he would take them off and I think wrestle in the boots and the jeans and stuff, which was funny.
Right.
But it was surreal hearing the music again and seeing him come out for real this time to fight.
Yeah, for sure.
It's awesome.
It's probably one of those things you don't believe is going to happen until it actually does. Yeah. And then they go all out because Shawn out with a back injury, at least initially. So Triple H, of course, attacks the back for the beginning parts of the match. It's a huge backbreaker to counter his sweet chin music, a couple of them. And then Irish whips him in the corner. Like all of his offense is targeting the back, which makes psychological sense. Even brings in a chair at some point because it's unsanctioned. Several shots to the back, and then Triple H gives him a DDT onto the chair, so busting Shawn wide open. And so it's really like at this beginning stages of this match, it's like, did Shawn come back too soon? Is he ready? That's kind of the story that's being told here. Earl Hebner, even at one point, is like, "Come on, knock it off, damn it!" And he's like, Triple H is doing the abdominal stretch with the rope steal, and then him and Hebner push each other. How do you feel about like referees getting involved like in this capacity? Do you think it takes away from the match, or do you think it kind of elevates how serious of a situation this is?
Maybe. I don't think it takes. So it just depends on the situation. I think there can be a case where maybe the referee's going too far. There is all sorts of history with Triple H and Earl, because they would do this spot where they would push each other. Like even before Jericho won the title on Raw in 99 and Earl was a big part of that. Even before that in like 96, 97, the two of these guys would do that spot where Triple H would push Earl, he'd hit the ropes and push Triple H back, and Triple H would bump. They've been doing that for like 6 years. So they always have those two a history of getting in each other's faces. So with Earl, I don't mind this specific thing because his character hates Triple H, and his character does not take any shit from Triple H, even though Earl was the perfect referee for this because he was supposed to be the ref for Shawn's match with Austin at WrestleMania, which was his last match. And before that match, Triple H and Shawn are like, "This is for you, Earl," like before going out to the ring. So seeing Earl being able to ref Shawn's return match was so appropriate. Then when you tie in all the physical history he has with Triple H, I thought he was the perfect referee. So in this case, no, but I'm sure there's some cases where referees get too involved. Maybe I can't think of anything specific, but usually with Earl, no, because Earl was always just kind of a no nonsense referee. And, he'd get physical. And I kind of like that. I like that he was fiery, because he was so little and get his ass kicked so easily, but he would stand up to a lot of guys.
Oh, he could shove a motherfucker. That Earl had.
Yeah. So he was just good at that. So in this particular instance, no, I don't think it was a problem at all. But I'm sure you can point to examples where maybe it's like, man, that referee's doing a lot or something. But just here, I didn't care.
Yeah, and it kind of ties in because Triple H, the whole thing is like Triple H, he wants to cripple Shawn Michaels. He wants to put him back on the shelf, and that's kind of it feels like that's like slowly happening in this part of the match. So Earl's like, "Come on, man, just pin him. You don't have to actually cripple him." Right. And then Triple H, he does not listen to Earl Hebner. He sets up a chair and then gives Shawn a backbreaker through the chair, which I love the way it just crashed through the chair.
Yeah, it just melted, bent underneath him. Yeah.
Then
working that back hard, because I think at this point, I think maybe the intent was for it just to be a one-off, and I think the decision came for Shawn to get in the ring more and more as the months went on. But yeah, that's why they kept telling the story of Triple H trying to end him and do as much damage as he can to him.
Yeah, but then it turns around at this point. Triple H grabs the chair, goes to swing it at Shawn, but Shawn super kicks the chair into the face of Triple H. So it's like, okay, he has some life at this point, but can he capitalize on it? So both guys are busted open at this point. But then they fight out to the ring, and then, before that, in the ring, Shawn hits his forearm, followed by the kip up, which at this point in time, we all know that's like a signature move that he does. But in 2002, maybe people weren't as familiar. Maybe they forgot about it. Maybe they thought maybe
how cool that is.
Maybe he can't kip up anymore. Maybe the back's been worked so much he can't do it. But when he kipped up, the crowd just erupted. And I think that's kind of like, because it kind of progresses after that, as Shawn does like these things that we now know are like kind of commonplace for Shawn, like the sunset flips and the cross bodies and all that. Like maybe at this point, and I wasn't watching at this point, but maybe some people were like, does Shawn still have it? Like he physically looks in shape, but is he in ring shape? And then I think as the match kind of progresses, you see Shawn, you see like that old HBK kind of materializing in front of you. So I love that element because he was just doing the most simple things, but the crowd was eating it all up.
Yeah, and I remember like it was the question was answered pretty quick in this match for me anyway. If Shawn was like because I was a little worried if he could do the things, but like when I saw how he looked physically and the way he was working and moving around with Triple H right off the bat, I'm like, he looks to be back. But that like kip up and stuff, that's what solidified it. And he did it with cowboy boots, which are way heavier than your wrestling boots are going to be. And doing all this stuff, he did the big dive through the table, which I'm sure we'll talk about, and all the stuff he was doing physically. It was literally. I know they say it cliched. Oh, it's like he never left, but it really was. He was Shawn of 1998 in this match, and I was not expecting him to be that Shawn. I knew he'd still be Shawn, but I'm like, he's got to lose half a step, or so. He lost nothing, so props to him. He got himself in shape, ring shape, probably worked out a lot, got himself ready, and he was every bit as good as he was the day left in my mind. Yeah,
if not better, really. I mean, with hindsight, we know what he would do after this, and just with Angle, with Taker, with Jericho, like just classic after classic. So, but we're still in this mess. So Shawn and Triple H fight to the outside, and Shawn returns the favor because earlier in the match, Triple H was hitting him with trash cans, and he even took off his belt and was whipping him. Shawn returns the favor with trash can shots and belt shots. They fight like towards the announce position, and Shawn takes off the shoe of, I think it was like Hugo Savinovich or somebody, and batters Triple H in the head with the shoe. And then King has a funny line. He says, "That's a heel for a heel."
A heel for a heel. Psh. Well, there's always got one.
Oh man, he's always on. And Shawn, he's kicking Triple H's ass at this point. So he's like kind of like the charisma is coming out of him a little bit. Like HBK is kind of, because he spent this whole first half of this match getting his ass kicked, but now it's like, okay, HBK is here, so he's like runs around the whole ring and bulldogs Triple H on the stairs, which was a funny spot. Catapult, but Shawn brings out a ladder, which the crowd pops hard for. It's like, man, I didn't think that would be in this with these guys, but catapults Triple H into the ladder, sits it up in the corner. In the ring, Shawn hits a superplex, but I like this little like detail. He turns his body a little bit on the superplex, almost like a Falcon Arrow kind of thing, because his back had been worked on the entire match and the previous injuries. Those little things I think is what makes Shawn so good.
Yeah. He's got to sell what's wrong with him and make sure that
Yeah.
he's doing that right. He did the whole time.
Yep. And then Shawn pulls out a table, just pleasing every member of the audience with every weapon that they can imagine. Sets it up on the outside. We get that classic spot where he sets Triple H up on the table, splash from the top rope through the table on the outside. Just, man, the flashes from the camera. I miss that, man.
Yeah, I know. Flash photography. Yeah, Shawn does a little thing before he jumps, and just says, F it, why not? And that was another moment in the match where I was like, oh, he's back. I'm like, that's he's doing everything. He's 0 F's given and just diving off top ropes. And so if there was any worry that he's so physically hurt that he could break himself or permanently injure himself in a match, that was pretty much gone when he's diving off of top ropes into tables. I'm like, oh, he can work. So he should be back for more. Like, we should see more of him. Hopefully.
I would say so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he keeps upping the ante, brings the ladder inside the ring, sets it up, and hits an elbow drop onto Triple H from most of the way up the ladder. So the crowd at this point is just on their feet. The energy at this point of the match is crazy. Shawn starts tuning up the band, goes for the sweet chin music. Even JR is like, bam, because he's like so convinced he's going to hit him. But then Triple H blocks it, spins him around, goes for the pedigree. But Shawn reverses, sweeps the leg into a jackknife pin for the win. Again, the crowd is just on fire. They loved it. Really great moment, and the aftermath was the aftermath. But as far as the match itself, I mean,
props to Triple H for putting him over too. I kind of thought like Triple H had already been world champ a couple times by this point, and happy to do the deed for Shawn and welcome him back. I love the kiss to Earl Hebner after he won. And that was cool, and it was just good for Shawn. That was probably just a great moment for him, just to be back. I did it. Not only did I did it, our match was good, and any worries or thought I had of not being able to deliver or come through on pay-per-view are gone. It's probably quite the relief. And so, it was all great for right then until 5 seconds later.
Man, he's at the height, the peak. Oh, you can't be any happier.
Yeah.
Sledgehammer to the spine, one shot from Triple H, and then a second one from a 12-6 shot to the back of Shawn Michaels. And man, Jim Ross is not too happy with this.
Jim Ross, that son of a bitch. he hates Triple H. Somebody put together a montage of just Jim Ross calling Triple H a son of a bitch or screaming at Triple H about something he did. They were like, Jim Ross really hates Triple H. And it's just like all these different clips. That son of a bitch. And that dastardly devil, evil bastard. Like just the worst things you can say on USA Cable is what Jim Ross was saying about Triple H over and over. Pretty funny.
It's got to be an hour-long montage.
Yeah, I know. It was pretty close. We knew though watching this on pay-per-view exactly what that was. It was disappointing to me. I'm like, fuck, Shawn's not coming back. Or he's at least going to be off TV for quite a while.
Right.
Because I'm like, after this, how do you not come back? How are you not in the ring from now on after a match like this? So as soon as they did the sledgehammer spot, I'm like, that's so they can get him back off for a few months until they figure out when to bring him back. Probably Survivor Series or something like that is what I had in my head. But I knew that sledgehammer shot meant we weren't going to see Shawn wrestling on Raw. And I remember being slightly bummed about that.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely. I think it is Survivor Series. This is his next match, which is funny because he wins the fucking world title in that match. But yeah, so he is off TV for a while. I know they took the whole deal at one point where Shawn's like in a wheelchair. It's at the World or something. He's like on stage.
And then he just jumps out of it.
Yeah,
that's how he. Yeah. And then he just jumped out, and I remember being like happy about that. I'm like, oh, he is okay, because they kept doing the wheelchair deal. I'm like, are they really going to try to pass this guy off as like paralyzed at home? I'm like, how long can they really do this?
Yeah.
And then he just pops out of the wheelchair like it's nothing. I'm like, oh, okay. And that's when they stuck him in the chamber, I guess, shortly after that. So.
Yep. And then after the match, Triple H, the visual of a bloody Triple H holding the sledgehammer, he's just slunking away, maniacally laughing.
Yep.
It's just a great visual. Stretcher job for Shawn. Yeah, this son of a bitch. But yeah, so great stuff there. And there's only one way to follow that.
Oh yeah,
with the Fink. So,
yeah, with the Fink. Yep, gotta have the Fink next. This was our buffer between the two big matches here.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, I definitely get it, but it's still silly in hindsight. Are you a baseball fan, or were you a baseball fan at this
Yeah.
point?
I mean, enough of one to know about it. Not diehard fan or anything, but yeah, I'm a baseball fan.
Were you bummed when the MLB went on strike?
That's right. This was this year. Well, God, I remember several strikes. I almost forgot that they had one in '02.
Yeah.
I've never super bummed when leagues go on strike for some reason. Only
Yeah.
because I'm like, fuck them. Like, I was like, guy, they don't want to play. I don't want to see them or whatever. But yeah, I've never had a strike affect me. Maybe I cared about an NBA one a little bit more than baseball, but at this time, I don't think I was losing sleep over it.
Yeah, it's funny. I've been in and out of baseball. It's been a while since I've really cared about it. But 2002, because I wasn't watching wrestling this year, but what I was watching was a lot of baseball. So if I would have watched this promo by Fink, boy, he would have ruffled my feathers. Because
oh yeah, did they lose the whole year?
No, I don't even know if they actually. I think there was like talks of them going on strike.
Okay,
or
so
maybe they
did,
lost
yeah.
a few games or something. I don't think it was a big thing.
Okay, yeah, so they must not have lasted long because I didn't quite recall that. Because I remember the previous year, the Diamondbacks beat the Yankees in the World Series in 01. So I didn't recall when a strike happened. But yeah, that's right. Fink did bring it up.
Yeah, and there was like even a commercial during the show. It was like, other sports might, contract negotiations might determine their schedule, but there's no off season in WWE. It's like, wrestling have heat with baseball? Is that like a subplot?
Yeah. They always like to brag that they didn't get themselves stuck in situations where the talent actually has a little bit of say in what they do.
All right.
so they make a commercial bragging about that they have theirs by the balls.
Yeah.
In our league, our talent can't strike. We won't let them. So that's basically what that commercial was.
Yeah.
Oh man,
the grapefruits on WWE, man.
Yeah.
But so Fink's a bit of a heel at this point because he's kind of, I guess Lillian Garcia's like taken over his spot a little bit. And they had a segment on Raw where Fink, I don't remember what he said. He was like, I've been doing that. I was the first employee. You can't just take my spot. And then 3-minute warning comes out. Yeah. And Fink, I forget what exactly happened, but Fink basically throws Lillian to the wolves and they kick the shit out of Lillian. So that's why this whole thing is happening. So Fink's out there. He's like, this is the first time I've been in this Coliseum announcing since WrestleMania 2. It's like, who gives a shit? And then he's like, MLB might be going on strike, but you will always have the Fink. And out comes Trish Stratus.
Trish, oh yeah, finally. Got some female representation.
Yeah, a little. God, this segment here. So Fink and Trish are, jaw-jacking in the ring. Fink says something about, listen here, Trish, you might feel comfortable here because you're in an arena full of Long Island skanks. It's like, goddamn, Fink. And
jeez, Fink's harsh.
He's brutal. Trish is like, Fink, I think I've always thought you've had a sexy voice. And then Fink, with the line of the century, he says, you got the puppies, I got the wiener.
Yeah. He's got his wiener. It's there.
His penis?
In case you want a little bit.
In case anybody was curious, he's
Howard's passing out wiener. I'm good on Howard. I'm good on Fink wiener.
Are you?
I'm all right. You can have some if you want.
Yeah, that was the one question I wanted to ask you is if you wanted this wiener, but
I'm good. Cool on the wiener.
That'll be the headline of this episode. But so Trish and Fink hug, and then Lillian Garcia comes out, slaps Fink, kicks him in the balls, and then all the ladies are happy, I guess.
Yeah.
So that's
poor Fink. Yeah.
Poor Fink and his.
Usually he's the babyface in that situation. He's getting bullied, and then he gets some revenge. But this time he's the heel. He's the bully.
Yeah. Well, I was all for it. He should have had a bigger role. Put the title on Fink. For all I care.
Yeah, they should have made this whole segment the main event. Just had Brock and Rock open the show.
Or Brock versus Rock versus Fink.
Yeah.
I can see that poster. I can see that happening.
Yeah, heck yeah.
But unfortunately, we just have The Rock versus Brock Lesnar. Little match here. For the WWE Undisputed World Heavyweight Championship. And so this is the point. In hindsight, this is really the last time we see babyface Rock like in this capacity. I guess with his match in John Cena maybe, but in this run, this is really the last time we see him like this because the crowd was starting to turn on Rock. He's getting a little Hollywood at this point. Were you of that opinion that you felt like Rock had his one foot in Hollywood and was kind of leaving?
Yeah, I already felt like he was gone. I felt like he was going to come back in the summer anyway. He came a little bit early when Austin left, but I think he was due back to come back for a short time and do something, but was probably going to go off and leave again because he was doing the movies, and then he got signed on to do the other Mummy, and he already done SNL by then, and you could tell. And I remember being real bummed out about it that he was going to be leaving because Austin was gone as well. But here. Rock and Brock, yeah, I kind of felt like Brock was probably going to win the title. I was still really surprised that they would put a belt on a guy that quickly, but in my mind, I felt like, well, if Rock doesn't lose it here, he's going to lose it soon because he's leaving. And yeah, I already had like the Rock, the babyface Rock as we knew him. I felt like it was already gone. He had just come back briefly here in 2002, but it felt temporary. And yeah, this was essentially it for so long. The Hollywood Rock would be in 03, but then after that, I don't even consider WrestleMania 20. I don't even think of that match as one of my last memories of The Rock. Like, it's all here in 2002.
Yeah, for
me,
sure.
You know,
yeah, it's only, I guess it's 2003 or maybe late 2002. He comes back with the tattoo and the leather vest and the glasses.
Yeah.
Leaning
that was all
into the
good.
hood. Yeah.
Yeah, that was all great and everything. But like this Rock, you know, as we knew him, like this was it. I've definitely felt like he was going to be doing a lot more Hollywood stuff and a lot less wrestling.
Yeah, I think he's champion here. Just it's almost a transitionary reign. It's weird to say about The Rock, but that's really what it was.
Yeah.
He just won the title at Vengeance the month before.
Yeah.
And that classic triple threat match with Taker and Kurt Angle.
Yeah.
And Brock Lesnar, I mean, you said it. He's still very new, 5 months in to his run in WWE. He's won King of the Ring, which is how he got this match, by the way. That was the stakes, which I liked. Destroyed both Hardy Boys, destroyed Flair, ended Hulkamania. Like, this is Ascent. I mean, it's been quick, but it's been effective. I mean, just look at the fucking guy. He's a monster. So.
I know. Yeah. They saw, I mean, I thought he was just amazingly physically awesome. I was just still like really shocked that they were going to go with him, but how could you not? He was already on the tear. Yeah. You said it, put down Hogan, won the King of the Ring, was just smashing everybody he came into contact with. And now he's going to have to face The Rock. Yeah. The writing was definitely on the wall going into this match for sure.
Yeah.
For Rock.
Yeah, for sure. But man, this feels like a main event. I don't know about you. The Rock versus Brock Lesnar. It's just so much because, like you said, it's like, are they going to put the title on him so quickly? And is he going to beat because The Rock is still The Rock, no matter what he is. I mean, he's still a top guy in pop culture, like beyond wrestling. So it's like, is this new guy going to beat The Rock? But we see what happens. So
I like that Rock passed the belt off to Angle and Brock, you know, in his career. You know, both of those guys beat Rock for their first titles. And I kind of think it's cool that he was the guy to do that for them, you know, both of them, because, you know, as legit as Angle was, Jesus, now you got Brock, you know, and Rock was all in. The video package treatment they did for this was very good. It felt like a high profile match. It felt like a big deal. Rock and Brock. I had a roommate at the time who didn't really care about wrestling. And I was watching this, the segment, the build up on like a Raw one week or SmackDown, whatever it was. And he was just like, that Brock guy is fucking huge, man. He was just kind of like watching it. He goes, they're facing each other. I'm like, yeah, in 2 weeks at the pay-per-view or whatever. He's like, damn, you know, he had mild interest in it. He didn't really know either guy really, but just based on the way they were presenting it, he was like, that kind of looks like it'll be a good fight, you know? I'm like, it's probably going to be.
God, Brock Lesnar. I mean, he's obviously still going today, still a monster. Yeah. But 2002 Brock Lesnar is like, he's a cartoon character because he's so obviously so jacked up, but then you see him get in there, he hops over the top rope, he's moving around like a cat. It's just crazy.
He made me feel like I wasn't doing enough with my life because I'm the exact Brock and I are like a month apart. So in age. So like Brock was doing this at the very same age I am. And I'm like, how come? What's stopping me from doing that? Everything. You know? So I'm like, God, he's 200 pounds heavier than me and he can do shooting star presses and shit. Like, what the hell?
Well,
so he's just stupidly tough and big and bad. And yeah, he's the exact same age as me. And I was the size of his leg. It blew my mind.
Hey man, it's never too late. It's never too late. Just get those, because it cracked me up. I think it was on like Raw or SmackDown. It was like a segment, a video package just showing Brock's various workouts. Like it would be like dramatic music with like the sticks, and then he has like the sticks where he's doing like push-ups on it. It's like,
he would make his own gyms in his barns and stuff and get himself in country shape.
That's what I imagine.
That's a different type of shape.
When he's not on WWE TV, he's out there throwing a tree around somewhere.
Yeah. That's what you do.
Apparently he is. So
yeah.
So yeah, the match is pretty good. Especially after following Triple H versus Shawn Michaels was a tough follow, but I thought The energy of this match is really good. I mean, it felt like a main event to me. Rock from the beginning sprints to the ring, but gets hit with a belly to belly from Brock. So it's like, oh shit, this dude's
Right off the
built
bat.
different.
Yeah.
So Rock locks in his classic sharpshooter at some point. But as he has this in, Heyman, who's ringside, of course, he gets involved a few times in this match. But at this point, he throws in a chair, which distracts the ref. Lesnar grabs this chair when the ref's distracted and jabs it into Rock's ribs, which were previously injured on Raw, SmackDown. I think both Raw and SmackDown. So again, that's kind of the story, is attacking the ribs, and Lesnar locks in this bear hug. Now, I'm sure you've seen quite a few bear hugs in your day, and there's a lot of times where it can feel like, oh, they're just taking a nap for a little bit.
Yeah.
Like I watched recently, I think it was Mabel versus might have been Savio Vega, the King of the Ring match. And like half that match is just Mabel like bent over, just falling asleep on Savio's stomach.
Yeah.
But this one,
It's popular with big guys to do that. I was at WrestleMania 3 in Pontiac, and Hogan and Andre had about a 8-minute bear hug spot in the match that just sat there, you know. And I remember the next day at school, that was a big topic of conversation, was the bear hug. Like that bear hug was like 30 minutes, you know, or whatever. We were talking about the bear hug. So yeah, bear hugs are classic rests. But here, like, Brock is so believable. Isn't that how he put Hogan down? Did he put him down with the bear hug when he wiped the thing? Yeah. So I like that they were using a simple move as old as the business is to be used in a 2002 SummerSlam main event. I kind of like that a little bit because it highlights Brock's strength. He can squeeze your organs out of your mouth, you know, if he tightens up hard enough. And that's the story.
Yeah, I mean, visually it makes sense. I mean, he looks like he could just squeeze you with one hand. But yeah, this bear hug, and he's not just sitting there. He's like he's like using his amateur wrestling background. He's like gator rolling them. He's like rolling them into pins. Like he's actively doing stuff in this bear hug, which is something I noted.
But he's a wrestler. Yeah, he's just wrestling, just imposing his will. And Rock is so strong, you know. And when Brock is able to manhandle him, like how strong you got to be to manhandle the Rock? Jesus.
Right.
Yeah.
But Rock, of course, eventually fights out, does this whole punch, spits on the hand, punch, and Lesnar just takes a hilarious bump over the top rope, just goes flying. Then Rock hits a catapult on the Lesnar into the ring post, and it just made me laugh because like how sweaty Brock was. He hits the ring post, which, by the way, he damn near jumps over the post.
Yeah, he always sells them.
Lands and just slides like a slug. Like
when he hit the ground, you mean? Like when he hit the mat, he slides back. Yeah. Because he would always really jump hard on the slingshots. He'd always oversell stuff like that. When he slides, it's all that baby oil and sweat, like you said, on him. He'll slip and slide down. He's like, "Oh, this is fun. Do it again." Me next. Pro. Yeah.
Seeping out of his pores.
Yeah.
But Rock, God bless Paul Heyman. Rock gives Paul Heyman a rock bottom through the announce table. Quite the bump for old Paulie.
That was crazy. Yeah, I remember. Ugh. Ouch. Yeah, good for Heyman taking that bump.
Gotta eliminate that aspect of it.
Hopefully got a bonus for that.
You would think so. And in the ring, they finally get back in the ring. Rock hits the rock bottom onto Lesnar, but only gets a 2 count, amazingly. Brock gets up and hits the Brock bottom for a 2 count. So both guys are whipping out their big guns here. Brock hits a spine buster, goes for the people's elbow, but Brock hops up like a cat, hits a clothesline, and then they trade. F5 gets countered into a rock bottom attempt, gets countered into an F5, and Brock is eventually able to hit that F5 for the win. So Brock Lesnar, your new undisputed champion, 5 months into his run. And Summer of Rock is here, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. Watching it, almost, even though that was the planned outcome, it felt like the fans made that happen or something. Like even when Brock jumped up and countered the people's elbow, when he jumped up and nailed the Rock, like the fans were like, yes! Like I swear they could feel it. Like he didn't hit the people's elbow. Rock is not putting up with this prancing around elbow shit. You know, like he's going to annihilate him, and then to finally hit the F5 and hit it this time. And just even the way he covered him, the camera shot, it was like that was it. I had no doubt that the ref's hands was coming down for 3 on that after the F5 was fit. I'm like, that was it. And the crowd knew it, and everybody, you could just feel it, and felt like the crowd willed it to happen, even though it was just something it was supposed to happen. But they turned on WrestleMania and SummerSlam twice in a row. The crowd shit on the Rock, and it worked out because for them doing that with him, now it made sense for him to come back as Hollywood Rock in 2003. You know, after that match with Hogan, and now Brock, where the fans didn't seem to appreciate Rock so much. But I think it was their appreciation for Hogan, of course, the nostalgia, and then their appreciation for Brock, because even the fans knew that he was the next big thing for real.
It was something special.
They weren't like, oh no, I hope it doesn't work. So I can't believe they put the title on him so quick. No, everybody was all about that.
Right.
So, and that was that's what made those times great, because they really felt special and the crowd knew it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's crazy to see the beginning of his run here, Brock Lesnar, and then would go on to SmackDown, have his matches with Kurt. I think Undertaker's next for him. So man, he's got a great rest of the year for him. And then Brock leaves for a little bit, comes back, loses to the Hurricane, leaves again. You know how it goes. But
yeah, Brock would go into that. He'd have 2 matches with Taker. I think the second one would be the Hell in the Cell, which was my favorite, which was just super bloody and brutal and violent. And that was I think that was even more so than this match. I remember saying, wow, this Brock is a big deal. They put the title on him in the main event of SummerSlam. I think what made me the true believer was that Hell in the Cell with Taker. Who leaves Taker leaving in a pool of his own blood in a Hell in the Cell match, and does it with no help. I'm like, oh wow, this he's a very, very large deal, this Mr. Lesnar.
He sure is. Yeah, especially Taker. I mean, he's his year. I mean, beating Ric Flair, and then he became champion, beating Hulk Hogan. Then he had a pretty decent run, and he lost it. He didn't get pinned to lose the title, and then he's here beating Test. He's been dominant in 2002. And I mean, he's the fucking Undertaker. He's always like a favorite in any match. And then I agree that Hell in a Cell is one of my favorites, because there's one when I visualize that match, I think of Brock like on the top rope holding the top of the cell.
Yeah,
that's why I like that first iteration of the cell so much, because it was so small. It felt suffocating. It felt like you're locked in. Now it's just like
you were in a cell. Yeah, you were in an actual cell. So yeah, that's the visuals there were so good, and yeah, that was might have been up there with one of my favorite ever. Yeah, this was all the beginning of it.
Absolutely. So, yeah, and that brings SummerSlam 02 to a close. Yeah, any other overall thoughts on the show? Anything we didn't touch on?
No, not really. Just after we went back and talked about it here and touched on every match, this really does deserve to get some high appreciation for a good SummerSlam. I mean, this card, from top to even the buffer matches are pretty fun and good in this thing. And on paper, just a lot of good one-on-one stuff. The Angle Mysterio and the RVD Benoit and Jericho Flair. Just one-on-one was what the show was about. Rock, Brock, Triple H, and Shawn. So yeah, it's one of the best SummerSlam cards ever. Good opening match, good middle stuff, good main event. Yeah. What else do you want out of a card?
You had your work rate stuff. Your
exactly.
Character work.
What could they have given you? What were we missing on the show? What were we like? Maybe a women's match, maybe, but people didn't care back then, so much. So I mean, other than that, there's nothing on the show, where you're like, oh, it would have been stronger if they did this. No, they hit it out of the park in my mind.
Yeah, and it felt like it was very match heavy. Like it was the big percentage of the show was wrestling. Like they had this stupid stuff with Bischoff and Stephanie, but that was pretty short. And like I said, it just kicked off like right away. It felt like they're really leaning into the work rate aspect of pro wrestling at this point, which is kind of
you were right. Yeah, 2 minutes into the show, there's a match happening, and so that's pretty rare. So.
Yeah, really refreshing the product, and but yeah, good stuff there. But man, thank you once again, Gregorio, for coming on, talking about some wrestling. Where can everybody find you and Good Mic Work?
Over on the YouTube is my primary place. Good Mic Work Commentaries on YouTube. I've got a podcast live stream. We do watch-alongs over there. You can find my podcasts on the podcast sites and iTunes and iHeartRadio and Stitcher and Spotify and all that stuff. I also have a website, GoodMicWorkCommentaries.com. You can download all my episodes over there. And you can find me on Twitter at Good Mic Work. Wrestling content like crazy. Been doing it 12 years. Come check me out.
Yeah, you were one of the, you might have been the first wrestling podcast I ever listened to. That was before everybody had a podcast.
Wow.
But,
right. Yeah.
Back in the old days.
That goes way back. Yeah. Well, I'm happy to do this. And let me know when this video gets up. I'll make sure I throw up a link on, on my social medias and all that stuff. And hopefully people tune in and watch us talk SummerSlam.
Absolutely. Maybe next time we'll do like a shitty show. We'll do some WCW 95 or something.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm down.
Once again, thank you to Greg from Good Mic Work for joining me on the Splendiferous show. Really good time with old GMC. Talking about SummerSlam 2002. Like I said, go check out Good Mic Work Commentaries wherever you listen to podcasts, as well as YouTube. Good Mic Work Commentaries for all things Bald Handsome Greg. Follow him on Twitter and all that stuff at Greg at Good Mic Work. And follow me if you want. at Apron Bump on Twitter, apronbump.com for all my socials. All the stuff's in the description. I don't even know why I need to say it, but some people are audio. I was gonna say audio listeners, but that's the only way to listen. Well, any hoozle. I think I've about covered it, huh? Fink's wiener. I've thought more about Howard Finkel's penis in the past couple days than I ever have in my entire life. God rest his soul, but man, Fink doesn't strike me as a guy that has a solid piece. Not to speak ill of the dead or anything, but like, I'm sure he was a great guy. Just strikes me as a guy with a smelly acorn penis. So, yeah. Well, I gotta jam. I just don't want to talk to you anymore. Thank you guys once again for listening. I love you all. Stay tuned for next week. We got In Your House 4 coming at you. So we go from one of the best shows of all time to Maple versus Yokozuna. So it's kind of the highs and lows of the Apron Bump. That's why you listen. You sure as hell ain't listening for this face. So, or are you? I'm hard.
Yeah.
It's the hardest. Talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing I guess. Let's get it started. It's the hardest. Talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing I guess. Let's get it started.